6:10 p.m. Eastern today, South Region, the 2-seed Houston Cougars, a 10.5-point favorite against Buckyball, Texas A&M, the 10-seed in the South, after beating St. Mary's, 141.5 the total. Ted Emmerich, Casey Jacobson, Brad, with the call on Westwood One.
Yeah, I think Texas A&M is going to keep this close because that's how Houston plays against formidable competition. Buckyball, you know what they're going to do. They're going to try to blitz you, really speed up Houston, get them out of their half-court sets because when that defense sets, they just punch you in the mouth repeatedly. Houston, what version of the offense are we going to see? Kingston Flemings is a baller and shot caller, going to be a top 10 pick in the NBA draft, but they have had prolonged offensive outages for different stints throughout the entire season. Still a formidable defensive team. I think A&M hangs tough. They score the cover. Houston wins. Give me the Cougars by 8, and I think the over hits as well in this game. It's going to be a little bit faster pace than some people suspect.
I think A&M might keep this game pretty interesting, Brad. I know that you think A&M's going to cover. I do as well. How shocked would you be, but 15 seconds here, if A&M pulled the outright upset and sent Houston home early?
1 to 10, with 10 being bat bleeping crazy. I think it would be like a 4, honestly.
Okay.
It wouldn't shock me all that much.
All right. I don't disagree with that. I think this game might be a little closer than the market expects with Texas A&M and the way they like to play. If they can get into a track meet, if variance goes their way. When have we ever seen Houston struggle to score in a big spot? Oh, that's right. Every March, and sometimes we get it in April, and sometimes in the national championship game like we saw last year against Florida. Hour 1 done here. Countdown to tip-off on round of 32 Saturday. Hour 2 for you coming up on the other side. In hour number 2, Brad and I will break down the rest of today's games. Gonzaga, Texas, Illinois, VCU, Vandy, Nebraska, Arkansas, High Point. We will hit every game coming up tomorrow on Sunday, and we'll wrap the show with all our bets for the weekend. But we will start hour number 2 right after this with friend of the show, Mike DeCourcy, live from South Carolina, here on Westwood One Sports, presented by BetMGM.
This is Westwood One Sports.
Download to see if you qualify. Not all customers will qualify. Transfer fees may apply. No Albert subscription required. Albert is not a bank. Albert Instant Loans are issued by FinWise Bank, member FDIC. Not an actual client. Terms apply.
Kylie, what's wrong?
I just got hit with a car repair bill. I'm behind on rent, and I feel like I can never save any money.
Have you tried the Albert app? Albert is your financial assistant, helping you find ways to save and create custom budgets to actually grow your money. Plus, you can get up to $10,000 for big expenses, or advance up to $1,000 fast when you need cash right away.
Albert can get me up to $10,000?
Exactly. Albert spots you in a pinch and helps you grow your money in the long run.
I'm downloading Albert right now.
Download the Albert app and use promo code GOAL to borrow up to $10,000 for whatever you need. The Albert app helps you budget better and save more money so you reach your financial goals faster. Download the Albert app right now and use promo code GOAL to borrow up to $10,000. Use code GOAL to borrow up to $10,000.
After a really bad wreck, you're dealing with real problems. Medical bills, missing work, the insurance company runaround. You need someone who gets it, who'll work to straighten out the mess, and work to make sure your recovery covers every dollar it should. I'm attorney Michael Jeffcoat. I've been helping injured folks like you for almost 30 years. When you're hurt and need serious help to make things right, call Jeffcoat at 803-200-2000.
Responsible attorney Michael Jeffcoat, 1333 Main Street, Columbia.
Hendrick.
Why shop for a Chevy or GMC the way you always have? Shop the nation's #1 dealer group, Hendrick Chevrolet and Hendrick GMC. Buy now, but make no payments for 3 months. Experience the Hendrick difference.
With approved credit, see dealer for details.
Explore the world with the 31st Annual Columbia International Festival, April 18th and 19th at the State Fairgrounds with free parking. Experience over 100 national exhibits, cuisines from around the world, an international bazaar, a global fashion show, an Olympic-style flag ceremony, and performers from around the globe. Now partnering with the SC250 Revolutionary Discovery Center. For tickets and more information, visit cifonline.org. That's cifonline.org.
Did you know about 1 in 3 people with plaque psoriasis may also develop psoriatic arthritis, which causes joint pain, stiffness, and swelling? Does this sound like you? Listen to what it sounds like to be a million miles away. Tremfya, guselkumab, taken by injection, is a prescription medicine for adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis who may benefit from taking injections or pills or phototherapy, and for adults with active psoriatic arthritis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Imagine being a million miles away. Explore what's possible. Ask your doctor about Tremfya. Visit Tremfya.com or call 1-800-526-7736.
This hour of in-show listening on 1075 The Game is sponsored by QC Kinetics in West Columbia, the non-surgical regenerative orthopedic specialists of the Midlands. Request your consultation today by dialing pound 250 and use keyword QC Kinetics.
This is Larry Leitner, owner and founder of Midstate Roofing, and for nearly 30 years, we've continued to be the proven leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry. Midstate Roofing's proven history is your assurance that our professionals at Midstate Roofing will provide the proper advice, service, and results to the needs of your facility in a manner both safe and pleasing to your operation. From high-rise to hospitals, manufacturing to industrial, Midstate Roofing designs and installs bonded systems with a protective guarantee that will keep your operation dry and running long into the future. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
And this is Blake Leitner, reminding you to protect that roof with a maintenance contract. Call me today at 803-356-1919 or online at midstateroofing.com. That's midstateroofing.com.
You'll speak to an on-call technician after hours or a Midstate Roofing staff member during hours at 803-356-1919 or online at midstateroofing.com. And as always, tell them Midstate Twins.
If you have a leak, let Midstate Roofing take a peek.
Let's rodeo at the Cinch World's Toughest Rodeo, presented by RM43. March 27th and 28th at Colonial Life Arena. It's rodeo and a whole lot more. Come early for autographs, pony rides, and more. See more action, the best entertainment, and be part of the fun. It's too great to wait. Get tickets now at Ticketmaster.com. It's wild, it's western, it's pro rodeo at the Cinch World's
Your home for the Gamecocks. 1075 The Game. WNKT Eastover, Columbia. A Cumulus media station.
Elijah Campbell and Tyler Head getting you ready for the number 4 Gamecocks in the NCAA tournament. Sponsored by Griffin Pools and Spas. On your home of the Gamecocks, 1075 The Game.
Welcome in. 12 o'clock on your Saturday. You're not usually used to hearing our voices on Saturday. I am Tyler Head. He's Elijah Campbell, our med, Ed Bird at Master Control. A little abbreviated local post-game show. We're going to lead you right in to Brad Muller over at Colonial Life Arena as we get set to start the NCAA Women's Tournament for South Carolina. Of course, a number 1 seed taking on the Jaguars of Southern, who played their way in via the
NCAA
first
tournament.
4
Nick
the
Costos,
other day as they
Brad
took down
Evans,
Samford in that first 4 game. And again, we kind of know how these games go. We'll get into it in a moment, but excited to get things rolling today at 1 o'clock with the women over there at CLA.
I mentioned, like, during the SEC tournament that kind of the road to Phoenix started that day, and it did indirectly. It directly starts today.
Yes.
Right? Today is the day that we've, of course, we've known for a week now, of what the pathway is going to look like, what you have to do, and who you're going to have to go through potentially to actually get to another Final Four, which would be, what, 5 in a row?
Let's see, 64, 32, 16, 8, 4, 6. 6 games.
6 games.
Yep.
So we get to a national championship. So, and this program's on a historic streak in terms of getting to at least 4 every year. Every year that I have been here, they have at least been to the Final Four or the national championship game.
Right.
That is the expectation. That is the standard. All of that starts today against Southern.
It's weird, and look, there's been so much other basketball between the the men's tournament starting, which, by the way, wild couple of first days that we'll have a lot of fun talking about coming up on Monday on our local shows. But it feels like it's been a month since we last saw this team play against Texas in the SEC championship a couple weeks back, where they did lose that game. Texas gets off to the 14-0 start, and Carolina didn't really play bad after that. They just got off to such a bad start they couldn't overcome that gap. And again, only one of the handful of losses they've had this year in the the 4 years I've been here, I think they've only lost 8 total games. So we're not used to talking about that. But we know Don Staley coach teams typically play their best following a loss. And again, the last time they lost in the SEC tournament final back in 2022 to Kentucky, they went on a run and won the national championship. So while the loss was not great, we obviously know they typically play their best basketball after that.
Oh, for sure. And there are countless examples in men's and women's college basketball where a team loses in their conference tournament and ends up making a run in the NCAA tournament, sometimes winning the national championship, right? And a lot of people look at that and say, oh, your conference tournament's meaningless. No, it's not that means. It just means it's maybe not the greatest indicator of success going into the tournament. Even if we could just look at last year's SEC tournament where they dominated Texas. Now, they did get to the Final Four, and they did dominate Texas in the Final Four to play the national championship game. But what you didn't see in that SEC title game and what you ended up seeing in the second round against Indiana and you saw in the Sweet 16 against Maryland and the Elite Eight against Duke is maybe some of the flaws that team had offensively. They did not go into that tournament playing their best on offense. Now, defensively, they always bring it, and that's always a Don Staley coach team stamp, is that you play the game on a Monday through Friday or a Saturday or Sunday. You play the game on this continent, Europe, Mars, doesn't matter. They're going to play defense, right? No matter what the pretenses are, they are going to be a great defensive team. They're going to have a good defensive performance. But last year you saw in that Indiana, specifically Indiana in the second round, Maryland Sweet 16, Duke Elite Eight, you saw a few games where they stalled out offensively. And I remember it was, Joyce in the second round that kind of came alive late and you avoided disaster.
Right.
It was Mylasia Fulwiley in the second half against Maryland in the Sweet 16 helped you avoid disaster. It was Chloe Kitts in the last couple minutes of the game against Duke in the Elite Eight who got the big shots to go in to help avoid disaster to get to the Final Four. This year offensively, I think they are better, or at least, more complete than they were last season. And when you look at that game against Texas, they were kind of MIA for the first few minutes of the game. They got really sloppy. I don't know if that's a complete indicator as to what they're going to be, but overall, you still have to feel really good about this team's chances, given the resume, given what they've done on the floor so far this season, that they do get to the Final Four, and that is the baseline, I think, expectation, and should be the standard for at least for this year's team, too.
Of course, today it starts with Southern. Again, they played their way in by beating Samford in the first four the other day. Look, we know how these games go. There's a reason South Carolina is a 53.5-point favorite, I believe.
It's gone up.
I think maybe it's. Let me double check to make sure I got that right. Yes, 53.5-point favorite. The latest line there is all these one seeds are massive favorites over 16s for a reason. And look, we know how these games go. This is typically going to be a game that South Carolina should be able to honestly have put away by halftime. And this isn't any disrespect to Southern. It's just, especially in the women's bracket, we don't see these 16s being nearly as competitive against the ones. So today is all about obviously getting out there, not shooting yourself in the foot. I always talk about this when you play these slower seeded teams on the men's and women's side. Crush their spirit early.
Yes.
Don't give them any kind of belief. We saw the other day with Duke and Siena when Siena can have an 11-point lead at halftime. That's when that belief really ramps up. Like, hey, we can do this. Making sure this team is put away by halftime going to be a big key today. And again, we don't doubt South Carolina's ability to do this. Don Staley was generous enough to give this Southern team some Louis fragrances, I believe, the other day when they complimented her, which I thought was neat. So they at least got a gift there. And, this will be cool for them years from now saying, hey, when I played at Southern, we got to take on Don Staley. We took on Tessa Johnson, Raven, Joyce Edwards. Like, these are going to be great stories for them to tell, a tournament experience for them. But again, we know South Carolina shouldn't have any problem handling their business today.
Yeah, I want to channel my inner Charles Barkley here. If you remember the famous quote from the 92 Dream Team, the Summer Olympics in Barcelona, where he's asked about Angola, because that's who they had to play. And he said, I don't know a thing about Angola, but I know they're in trouble. I don't know a thing about Southern, but I know they're in trouble, right? I mean, and that's just the nature of this thing. Now, to Southern's credit, they've won 20 games this year. And for a team that's in the SWAC, that was a fantastic year. And this is a reward for them to get to be able to play in this game as SWAC champions, as a team that earned their spot in this game by beating Samford. They just are going to get ready to go up against a buzzsaw, and there's a reason they're 53.5-point underdogs, right? If there's anything that they can hang their hat on, is that you look at the numbers, they are actually they're number 11, so they're top 15 in the country when it comes to defensive turnover rate. they're going to try to ball pressure you. They are going to try to make sure you turn the ball over and create some live ball turnovers so they can try to get layups out of them because they do struggle to score in the half court over the course of like your average 100 possessions. If there's anything that can make this thing a little bit freaky, it would be because you're being careless with the ball. You're sleepwalking your way into the game. You're a little loose with the rock, and then they end up taking advantage and picking you off a couple times.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be sustainable over a 40-minute period. But to your point earlier, don't give them any belief that they can actually win this game. Make this feel like a ceremonial first game of the NCAA tournament like it's supposed to. Take care of your business. Move on to Monday.
Well, and I think you also have to count in the fact that, they just played 48 hours ago, less than 48 hours ago, to win against Samford to get their way in. It's a little bit of a fatigue factor considering South Carolina's not played in basically about 2 weeks since they were in the SEC tournament, so that's going to be counting for something as well. And again, we don't doubt South Carolina's ability to be able to handle the business today, which would move them on to Monday, taking on the winner of either Clemson or Southern California, who are coming up playing later today over at CLA as well at 3:30 in the game following South Carolina and Southern. Now, listen, we got into some hot water with some of our listeners the other day by suggesting that it would be good for Clemson to win today to set up the in-state rivalry game for Monday. And a lot of people said, no, we don't want to see Clemson win anything. But you can't deny that would be a pretty raucous environment on Monday if South Carolina and Clemson were playing in the round of 32.
I want this. I think if you're a Gamecock fan, you should want this because then you get to break their spirits in the second round.
That was my point, is like you can crush them and send them home in the second round on your floor.
Yeah.
Like that's where I was coming from.
I know November 11th was a long, long time ago, right? It feels like forever ago. But on November 11th, you beat them by 28 points, and you did not play your best game. Yep. It wasn't their best game at all. I know some of the Clemson players were talking about, we're a different team now. So is South Carolina, right? Like, bring it, okay? Bring it.
Yep.
Like, I really hope you see Clemson. I don't think you do. I think Southern Cal beats them. And if you get Southern Cal, great, because guess what? You played them in November, just 4 days after you played Clemson, and you beat them pretty comfortably by double figures. I think Southern Cal is certainly a more formidable opponent, despite being the 9 as opposed to the 8 seed. But I really want to see a Clemson-South Carolina basketball game being played in an NCAA tournament game, especially if you're a Gamecock fan, a game in which you'll be favored to win by 20.5 points or whatever that spread is going to eventually be.
Well, there's a lot of fans that are like, Clemson should never win anything ever, and I can respect that, but I do think it would be fun if they do get to play on Monday, and obviously our plan is to have another show like this on Monday because I believe they're going to be tipping off about the same time to preview that matchup, again, assuming both teams are able to win today. But when you look at this side of the bracket for South Carolina, it is really interesting because you have potential rematches coming up with a team like Oklahoma, who is a 4 seed, who did beat you in the regular season. Your one SEC regular season loss because the Texas Thanksgiving game didn't count because that was out in Las Vegas. Iowa is a good team out of the Big Ten. TCU advanced through by beating UC San Diego yesterday. So you have a couple of tricky teams in here. Again, we always lean towards Dawn Staley and Carolina in a tournament, but there are some obstacles to get out of your side of the bracket.
Yo, certainly. Iowa's solid, and like if you look at Iowa's metrics, they're a top 10 overall team, very well deserving of a 2 seed. They played in a pretty good league in the Big Ten, which I think is maybe one of their most complete leagues that they've had in terms of just top to bottom, having really good competition. There are a lot of teams in the Big Ten that were in the top 25 in net, top 30 in net. Like, it was an improved year for the Big Ten overall, and Iowa does what Iowa does. They're a really good three-point shooting team. They're a really good two-point shooting team, so they're incredibly efficient as an offense. They take care of the ball. Maybe they're just not getting to the free throw line a lot, but then defensively they're pretty, conservative on that end, but they don't beat themselves. The typical Iowa team you normally get, just minus Caitlin Clark, is the Iowa team you have this year, and that would be a tough game.
Well, and they have a couple players still left from that team that you did play for the championship a couple years ago, so it's not a completely devoid team of talent. Again, Caitlin Clark took a lot of the shine from that team, but obviously they were still talented around her that allowed them to be in that position, so they're always capable. We talked to Chris Webb on yesterday. He's a little iffy on how deep the Big Ten is, so again, you're kind of only looking at what they've done against the Big Ten, but obviously you would be seeing them, and at that point the Elite Eight to go to the Final Four. So a lot of basketball you played between now and then if you're going to end up matching up with them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I think the team that I don't want to see, Tyler Head, which of course I think you're going to beat everybody in this bracket, right? I don't think there's a team that you're going to be an underdog to, but the one team that I think that actually would give them trouble is TCU. You saw what TCU did to UC San Diego yesterday. They took care of business, did what you're supposed to do when you're the 3 seed playing at 14. You beat the brakes off of them, especially at home because of how the women's bracket is usually formatted with playing home sites for the teams that are seeded 1 through 4. But they've got a couple of traits that I think can give Carolina trouble on just any given day, right? And it's because they shoot the ball so damn well. Olivia Miles is one of the best guards in the country. She had a triple-double in that game against UC San Diego yesterday, and she looked fantastic in terms of her ability to create open shots for others, to be able to create off the bounce, to be able to use her gravity as a shooter to change how defenses play them. And they have so many good shooters on that team that you can't help on Olivia Miles because she'll find an open shooter and they'll knock down another shot. It's one of the best three-point shooting teams in college basketball. TCU is the one that I'm looking at. I'm like, ooh, that could be interesting. They can make this interesting. I would still expect South Carolina to win. I took South Carolina to go to the Final Four. I'm very confident that they end up doing that. However, TCU does pose just maybe the most difficult challenge when it comes to what are the obstacles you're going to face en route. Even with Oklahoma on that, in your bracket too, if you play them in the Sweet 16, they would present a challenge because they've beaten you already. They're not going to be scared of you because they've beaten you already. Right. But you're a better team. I have seen good Oklahoma this year and bad Oklahoma. And even if whatever's in the middle is still incredibly beatable, I don't think you're getting great Oklahoma again, right? Especially twice. I don't think that's happening again. I would be more concerned to play TCU as opposed to Oklahoma.
Well, and with the way the bracket's set up with South Carolina being the 4th #1 seed, should they get out of this bracket, you're probably playing UConn in the Final Four for the opportunity to get back to the national championship. And obviously we know UConn on an absolute tear once again this year, the team that decimated Carolina in the championship game a year ago. Yeah,
and you knew you were going to have to get through eventually. If you want a national championship, you want all roads to end with you cutting down the nets for a national title. You knew that was going to be a possibility down the road. That was the obstacle you would have to overcome is big bad UConn, and nobody has beaten big bad UConn this year. The thing with UConn that's interesting is just how are they going to play once they get further into this thing and they're further removed from playing elite competition, because you can debate how good the Big Ten was this year. You can debate how good certain leagues are, but one thing you cannot debate, because it's pretty obvious the Big East is bad. Sure. It's UConn and everybody else. Villanova had a respectable year, and Villanova gave them a respectable game in the regular season. This UConn team, though, has the best players in that league by far. They have blue-chip talent. AZ Fudd and Sarah Strong are maybe the best combo of two players that exist on the same team in the United States of America. You're going to have to go through them eventually. Do you catch them maybe when they have a bad shooting day? It's possible, but you're not going to get a lot of help on the way there. If you make it to Phoenix, which I expect them to do, you're going to play UConn. I don't see anybody in UConn's bracket that's going to be able to give them any trouble. You're going to set up a date with them, and that is going to be the ultimate test. You won't get a lot of bracket luck when it comes to avoiding UConn, kind of like they did in 2017 for Mississippi State, and Vic Schaefer helped pull that off. That help isn't coming. If you want to win this national championship, it's going to go through UConn regardless.
A lot of basketball to be played between now and then. The task at hand today starts with Southern as South Carolina tries to advance out of its side of the bracket. What do we feel good about? What concerns us about this team as the tournament starts, with that coming up next and going up until 12:30, leading you right in to pregame coverage with Brad Mueller over at Colonial Life Arena here on 107.5 The Game.
This hour of in-show listening on 107.5 The Game is sponsored by QC Kinetics in West Columbia, the non-surgical regenerative orthopedic specialists of the Midlands. Request your consultation today by dialing pound 250 and use keyword QC Kinetics.
We've been here 30 years, 30 Christmases in this house, and we have the traditions that most families have.
That's Terry talking about her experience with Rhino Shield ceramic coating.
We did Rhino Shield 14 years ago, and the house still looks the same as the first day. Rhino Shield really worked with me to help me get just the right nice soft yellow, and it's 14 years later, and it's the same color.
The main reason Terry called Rhino Shield is because Rhino Shield is backed by a 25-year warranty.
It just sounded wonderful that we could have the house coated with Rhino Shield and not have to worry about it again for 25 years.
Take it from Terry. Give Rhino Shield a call at 833-RHINO-99. Call now and receive 15% off the regular price. or go to RhinoShieldCarolina.com.
There have been neighbors that have come by and said, "Did you just have your house painted?" Because they wanted to know who the contractor was. And I said, "No, it's actually Rhino Shield."
Call now, 833-RHINO-99 for your 15% off, or go to RhinoShieldCarolina.com.
LinkedIn is pretty amazing at helping you grow your small business. We cannot make your email response time faster. We can help you sell, market, and hire in one place. We cannot help you find space for your 3 desk drinks. Why do you have 3? And while we can't help you find the perfect volume for your presentation video, LinkedIn can help you find the perfect audience for your business. Grow your small business on LinkedIn. Learn more at linkedin.com/smallbusiness.
I'm Boomer Esiason. My mom died from cancer. She was only 37 years old. She didn't have life insurance, and that was devastating for my family. That's why having life insurance is so important to me. Ethos makes it fast and easy. Get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. You can get up to $3 million in coverage with no medical exam.
Get your free quote at ethos.com/music. That's ethos.com/music. Paid spokesperson. Time spent on application may vary. Online health questions required.
Hey, this is Ray.
And Mary Ann with Absolute Glass.
And we're happy to have been voted Lexington's best glass store for 15 years in a row.
Many drivers are unaware that your cracked windshields can be replaced, usually at absolutely no cost to you.
If all the high-end car dealerships in town can trust us to do their glass needs, so can you.
We service the Midlands both at our shop in Lexington, but we are also happy to come to you at home or work.
Find us online at AbsoluteGlassInc.com.
And remember, if you can see through it, we can do it.
Sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Progressive makes bundling easy and affordable. Get a multi-policy discount by combining your motorcycle, RV, boat, ATV, and more. All your protection in one place. Bundle and save at Progressive.com.
Elijah Campbell and Tyler Head getting you ready for the number 4 Gamecocks in the NCAA tournament. Sponsored by Griffin Pools and Spas on your home of the Gamecocks, 107.5 The Game.
All right, welcome back in. Local pregame show. Tyler Head, Elijah Campbell, Ed Bird on the other side of the glass. We are brought to you by our friends over at Griffin Pools and Spas that are helping you out following all the tournament action, hopefully all the way up into the Final Four coming up here in a couple weeks. Certainly appreciate them. About 10 more minutes, and we'll lead you right into local or the pregame coverage for the network with Brad Mueller over at Colonial Life Arena. As we get set to start the tournament, we'll hit on some of the things that concern us and what gives us confidence. So we'll start off with the concerns here. And, you know, Dawn talked about it yesterday that Edel Tack's still in her boot as of right now, so obviously not going to play today. We'll see if that improves as the tournament goes along. Maddie McDaniel also feeling under the weather. This team's been hit by a lot of sickness this year, injuries, had some suspensions early on. I know Chris Wellbaum had the stat a few weeks ago, I think, entering the SEC tournament, they had lost like 63 total starts to some form of missing games this year. So this is a team that's been plagued by a lot, which is part of the reason why we talk about this being, not to mention the fact that you had Chloe Kitts and Ashton Watkins missing the season completely before it even got started. That's why we talk a lot about this being maybe Dawn's best coaching job, certainly in the past handful of years.
Oh, for sure. And today, no Edel Tack probably, and then there's no... Yeah, Maddie McDaniel, because, again, another illness. Like, there's been a lot of that this year. There's been a lot of having to shuffle, especially non-conference play. It felt like any given night you were getting a different starting lineup. And then it slowed down in the SEC regular season portion. And then you were able to find some continuity. I think once they got that continuity is when they went on that tear and when they obliterated Vanderbilt at home, right? Who was a 2 seed in this tournament. When they obliterated Tennessee, when they obliterated a lot of teams that are normally really good basketball teams that came into this building and did not come out having a good time or going on the road and taking care of business. There were a couple of games in in SEC play early in the slate where you struggled a little bit. Like the Florida game was one of those where you played your C game and still were able to win by double figures just because you have such a talent advantage that it felt like, if you didn't get that level of continuity, they seemed vulnerable. But then they reach a stretch from early February all the way on where they did not seem anywhere near as vulnerable. And I think their ability to cruise through the SEC regular season and win it in the manner that they did is one of Dawn's best coaching jobs. Is it her best? Hard to tell, but this season certainly goes in that discussion because of just the overall shuffling of the lineup that's been forced to happen here so far this year.
What's the top of your list for concerns going into the tournament?
I think the biggest list of concerns that I have would be forward depth because, again, Adele's injury, she spent the entire SEC tournament basically on one of those little scooters. And if Medina Okot gets in foul trouble, where are you going to get the rebounding? You like Alicia Tornabes. She's coming along a little bit. Can she come in there and be the rebounder that you need? Because if you look at the LSU game, Medina Okot gets in foul trouble in the SEC semifinal and is pulled from the game after about 7 minutes of action because she picked up 2 quickies. And then in the course of that, they go on to get completely dominated on the boards. LSU grabbed about 45% of their missed shots in that first half. Medina comes back in, and that's over. You go from giving up 8 offensive rebounds in the first half to only 2 in the second half. Medina changes a lot in that regard. So to me, if Medina gets in foul trouble, can you have your backup bigs go in there and be able to rebound the ball effectively? Can Miriam Dowda and Alicia Tornabes give you what you need from that regard?
And speaking of Alicia Tornabes, it's always interesting, and Dawn talked about this yesterday as well, how your freshmen fare, right? Because it's one thing to tear through the SEC regular season, go through the SEC tournament, but the NCAA tournament is its own animal. I think Tessa went 0 in her first game in a tournament a couple years ago against Presbyterian. So how does Alicia, how does Isla McDowell, how does Agat McKeer, how do they handle being in the tournament for the first time? Again, is it going to be as big of a factor today against a team you should probably beat pretty handily? No, but as you get deeper into this thing and take on tougher and tougher teams, when you're asking them to play a big role, how do they handle that pressure is going to be a big question.
And then those players are going to be relied upon. I know there were a few games in this towards the end of the year, especially the Kentucky game, where Dawn didn't really dig into the bench that much. I think Maddie was the only bench player that got over 15 minutes in that game, if I'm not mistaken. You're going to need to rely on Isla McDowell if there's some foul trouble that you experience. You're going to need to get some good minutes from Agat McKeer if someone's in foul trouble. They're going to have to be able to step up and play roles. The entire season has been a collection of experiences to get to this point and be able to take advantage of those experiences, because at this point in the season, you're no longer a freshman. I like to firmly operate on the belief that if you are a freshman and you get to conference tournament time and you've been getting good playing time throughout the year, we can no longer use the freshman excuse anymore, right? At this point, you have played a full season of college basketball.
Now, for Tornabes, she did join the team later, so she doesn't have as much experience. So that's a little bit of an asterisk.
We can put a little asterisk right there. Yeah, 100%. You can say, yeah, Alicia will have a little more grace there, right? Because you were a little later to the party. But for everybody else, this is exactly, you have played a season. Right? And this is the moment that you have been preparing for the entire season. All of the experimenting in the lineups, all of the putting you in different positions is one of my favorite things that Dawn does throughout the season. Is she's so good at managing how to not just give players minutes and divvy those up appropriately, but how to put a lot of those young players in positions that they're going to see in the NCAA tournament and get them prepared for it. That's the advantage of having Dawn Staley, because I think they're going to be very prepared for it. Do you execute, though?
And that's the thing, mentioning Dawn Staley is, you want to talk about things to give you confidence. Having Dawn Staley as your head coach, again, this is the time where she shines. And again, the national championships speak for themselves. Some coaches are just elite tournament coaches, and Dawn Staley is certainly one of those. And when you look at the losses that South Carolina's had this year, they haven't played like god-awful, right? You had the last-second shot where Rory Harmon got it off in the Texas game back on Thanksgiving. Again, you went to overtime with Oklahoma and just played a really bad 5 minutes there. And you got off to a bad start against Texas when you lost to them in the SEC tournament. So they haven't played like a total all-around awful game. There's just been these bit parts in these games that's caused them to lose. But, again, they play their best basketball at tournament time. You have players like Tessa Johnson always seem to step up when the lights are the brightest. And, again, there's a reason why I don't think we have the highest concern as they get into this thing, because they always seem to find a way to win and get deep into this in the Final Four.
Oh, for sure. And what's wild about this team is you try to find common denominators in the few losses that you have this year. Especially when it comes to doing like what we do, right? With previewing games, you're kind of nitpicking a little bit to see exactly what can make any type of game leading up to the Final Four interesting. And so you look at the 3 losses they've had this year, to that neutral site game in Las Vegas against Texas, the loss in Texas in the SEC tournament title, and the loss to Oklahoma in Norman. The big thing is, in 2 of those 3, it was you missed so many shots around the basket. Now, this team has been a lot better this year. For most of the season, they've been north of 70% when it comes to making those shots from within 5 feet of the rim. That's really good. It's one of the best in the country. However, in the games that you lost, you missed a lot of those opportunities. The fact that South Carolina has consistently been getting about 30 shots at the rim per game is a testament to how good they are on offense. Any coach in the country would sell their soul to be consistently getting 30 shots at the basket every single game. The only thing that can beat you is if you don't execute when you do get those shots. And they bit them in the butt when they played against Texas in Las Vegas. It really killed them against Oklahoma. That game probably shouldn't have even gone to overtime because you missed a lot of the shots that you did get at the basket. And then Aaliyah Chavez plays out of her mind in overtime.
Yeah.
Against Texas, you just came out of the gate sloppy. You turned the ball over. You had 5 times as many turnovers as you did shots before the first media timeout. And by the time you blinked, you're down double figures, and then you end up playing even the rest of the way. That's 2 of the 3 right there where just missed opportunities near the rim killed you. As long as you can execute that, you're going to be fine because everything else, you got, 31 games of proof of concept to where if you execute the game plan, you focus whenever it's time to put the ball in the basket when you're in 5 feet of the rim, you're going to be okay.
Last 2 minutes here before you get it over to Brad Moeller at Colonial Life Arena. Your one key for handling business today is not underestimating your opponent, right? Yes, anybody can look up what the point spread of this game is, which is 53.5 points. Yes, you know exactly how big of a favorite you are, but if Duke men's basketball team taught you a lesson this weekend, it was Malik Brown after the game saying... No, at halftime.
Or at halftime, yeah, after the game, at halftime. He goes, yeah, we underestimated him. We thought this would be a cakewalk. No, you just by underestimating your opponent, even going in that game under the assumption it's going to be a cakewalk, is going to make things ripe for weird things to happen. Do not assume this is going to be a cakewalk. Go in there and execute like you're playing against Ole Miss or Texas or Oklahoma. Go in there and try to mentally trick yourself into doing that. Bring your own energy. The crowd's going to bring theirs.
Yeah.
That's a key.
I imagine Don Staley used that Malik Brown clip a few times in the past couple of days saying, better not be y'all. Better not be y'all.
I want to put it on repeat.
Make sure we don't make that same mistake that Duke did. Again, we're going to take you out to Brad Moeller here in just a couple of seconds. Tip-off today at 1 o'clock over at Colonial Life Arena. Then South Carolina will take on the winner of Clemson and Southern California coming up on Monday, and we'll have more details on the time and the pregame show for that as well. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the tournament. We'll talk to you on Monday. For Elijah Campbell and Ed Bird, I'm Tyler Head here on 107.5 The Game.
Your home for the Gamecocks. 107.5 The Game. WNKT Eastover, Columbia. A Cumulus media station.
The following is a Learfield presentation of the Gamecock Sports Network. This is the Gamecock Tip-Off Show on the Gamecock